Good evening, and welcome to the June 25th, 2019 regular meeting of the USD 500. We're glad you're here, and we know it's hot outside and it's cool in here. Good place to be. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as a protocol, we agree to read these at the beginning of every meeting. They state, we agree to respect differences of opinions in making decisions for the district. We agree to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself. We agree to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings. We agree to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district. We agree to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings. And we agree to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. Thank you. Mrs. Westfall, would you please call the roll?
Carol Brown.
Present.
Maxine Drew.
Present.
Janie Humphreys. Present. Brenda Jones. Wanda Brownlee Page.
Present.
Alvina Nguyen.
Present.
Stacy Yeager.
Present.
Need a motion, please, for the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the regular agenda. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed. Good evening, Dr. Faust.
Good evening. So today is always it's always a good day. One of the great parts is that now we've officially made it through one school year. This is our next board meeting will be our official of the next school year. So I'm excited. One of the things that we've accomplished a lot this school year. But one of the things pertaining to our schools, we had applied for some grants through Kaufman, and two of our high schools were recipients of those grants. And one with FL Schlegel, and they're going to be working specifically with emotional and social behavior. And then Wyandotte also received, and they're going to be doing some teacher training and doing some protocols there. And so those were some of the most exciting things. What we had is back in I can't remember if it was like January or so, I'd heard about these grants. So I had Lisa Garcia, who is out right now. She's celebrating her wedding anniversary, and so she's not able to be here with us. But she had her pull all the schools that actually fell into the needs of the grant. And out of that, we had those two schools, one receiving $185,000 and another receiving $200,000 for those grants. So we are excited. We're on a roll just to know that, one, they received those grants, and they're actually coming in because one came in earlier, another one came in yesterday. So, our hope, if you're listening, Kaufman, we're going to get more. So we may be bringing other individuals in and to talk about those things, but we're excited about it. We're also excited about the structure and where we're going, what we're going to be doing and how we're going to get there. Those are things that we know what to do. We have the people who are here and who are wanting to help us get there. And so we're, again, like I said, we're just excited. It's not too hot. So it's, right now, I guess it's like if we were doing the Three Little Bears is just right. This one's just right. And so we're getting that just right statement ready for our students and getting a reprieve right now, but we'll be ready when they come back in August. So thank you again for, we've had a successful run this year. And so our data, we're going to talk with the state and see if we can't get some things I guess if unembargoed is a word, so that we can show our success methods a little earlier instead of October, but we've made some good progress this school year. And again, we're thankful for the teachers and getting our contracts ratified, and we're thankful for what KNEA has done and how they are operating in the schools and building that partnership with them. So I can't be more happy of the relationships that we've built in-house. Next year, we'll be working on outside of the house. But before we start, we have to clean up some of the things that we want to make sure that, so when we run out, we can make sure that we are speaking the same language. So I want to thank everyone for a good first run. And make sure you wear your tennis shoes. We're going to take off next time.
All right. Sounds good.
Well, congratulations to all. And have you been here in August yet?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Dog days of August. This is Kansas. My communication, I mentioned this to Dr. Faust and Ms. Tushman in April, but I received a second correspondence from Mr. Leon Brady, and I don't know if all the members know who Mr. Brady is. He's still he's 88 or so. But he was a band director, music director. He took the Sumner Band to Paris and has won hundreds of awards. The laser version is that he has not received his benefits, retirement benefits, from USD 500. So I had a letter. I introduced it to Dr. Faust and Ms. Tushman. And so I'm just reporting that I've got a second letter asking the status of the situation. And I will deliver the second letter to Dr. Faust, Ms. Tushman, and legal. Because we don't want any legal action to come from this. We want to resolve this because it's there. So could I ask a status now? Any status report?
So we've actually handed it over to Greg Gilheen.
Okay.
And so he's researching at this point because of the time period that he was here was 1950,
59 to about 72.
And so it was during the time when we were not with Capers, and then so he's having to do research, go all the way back to that point to find where we were. So it's still, like it's, I don't know, they're still working on it. We don't have an answer for him now because Capers, all of that was not computerized. It was all
On
by
microfiche.
hand. Yeah. Well, I don't even know if it was there yet, but.
Those of
No
us who've done
offense.
research know the pleasures of microfiche.
So we don't have an answer
Okay.
right now, but legal is involved in that.
Good. And so we would hope that maybe in the next 15 to 30 days, but we could at least, within 15 days, have a status report. And, Capers says it's there, so perhaps in 30 days we can have a resolution. It's been 23 years, so it's time.
Sure. We'll assist in getting an update in that timeframe.
Good deal. And again, congratulations for all the Kaufman Awards. Other board members, please?
Yes, I had a number of things go on since the last board meeting. I visited our fellow board member Brenda a couple of times. She's doing well. I spoke with her yesterday. She's doing really good. It was good to see her feeling better. I visited a number of summer school sites to see how our summer schools are running, and they are doing great. It was good to see feedback and see the students in the classes learning, changing classes, understanding the subjects. So I think it's really good. I think this is a record number of students that have attended since we took away the fees required for it. So I look forward to seeing results of how they're able to get ahead. Especially in our elementary school students. It's great to see that they have that opportunity to be able to learn and grow and just get that extra nudge needed for school to be started. So that was great. Today I went to the migrant graduation or professional luncheon to meet students. It was really nice to speak with them to discuss what they thought about coming to the district, their future, their vision for what they want to see for themselves and family. It was just really great to talk to them. They also wanted to know more about me, and we connected and exchanged information so that we can continue to help support those students. I also went to the golf tournament. That was great. We were outside in the heat and hot for a little bit and got a chance to meet the donors and foundation, and I won a couple of prizes and got some things. So the golf tournament was really a good time to meet those scholarship recipients and really to see the other people involved, the donors, the staff. It was really great to see them. I also met with Lisa Garcia in Student Services. There were a couple of questions that came up on my tours for the summer schools as well as the community and things of that nature. So to get a better understanding, I talked to her myself. I said, what better is it to go to the source? So of course, I did speak with Dr. Faust first. And then he said, great, go ahead and ask Lisa those questions to get clarification. So I look forward to knowing more about our student services, because one thing it's important for us to know processes so that when we get questions or asked from the community, why is this or how does this work? I want to be able to provide the right information and direct them to the source. I also attended a number of Juneteenth events. Juneteenth is where we were notified as African Americans that slavery was over. So there were a number of Juneteenth events in our area that I also attended. I also visited the TIS Student Center over in the technology. Joe Fives invited myself and other board members to go over and see the student interns. It was so good to see their energy and excitement. They had 4 areas of rotation to where they learned about computer programming, hardware, software, and audio-visual. So they actually tore down a computer and was building it up when I saw them, and it was great to see them knowing the different parts and excited. And so it was great to know the background, and Chief Horn was actually there as well to think about how he could pilot it. So it was just really good energy when I went over there. The last thing I did is John Williams is part of the Black School Board Association president, and he's out of Topeka. We had a conversation. He would love to come visit our board meeting, and to see how our board runs and go to other board meetings, just so he can get more familiar with the Kansas City School District, the Wichita School District, some of the areas that he's over. So we had a great conversation, and he wants to visit us again too. So that's my report.
Thank you.
The golf tournament
Use the microphone.
was lots of fun, as Mary Stewart can attest to. She is a great driver of a golf cart, and you have lots of fun with Mary. It takes you back to your youth. And it was great to see the staff and all of our vendors and the people that support our district day to day that we normally don't see. Then last week, I went to see my brother, and I got to spoil a 9-month-old baby for 12 hours. That was the highlight of my week. I had to add that in. Her name is Brooklyn Marie, after her great aunt. And then today was a really nice luncheon with the Migrant Leadership Academy. The students, like Ms. Yeager said, liked to talk to you and tell you about their experiences and ask you about yours. It was very nice to be able to sit down and do one-on-one, not someone standing up answering questions to a whole group. It was more intimate. So other than that, I have been reading books and relaxing. This has been my vacation.
Others.
Yes, on June 12th, I also attended the Foundation of Excellence Golf Tournament. This was my first time. I know nothing about golf, but had an opportunity to ride with Alan King to give donations of snacks and drinks for everyone who was out playing the game. But what I really enjoyed is, and I have to compliment, is the staff from the central office and all of the other members who were there to help. They had it totally organized, and it flowed very easily. And I just like to compliment and say thank you to them. On June 18th, I met with Dr. Faust, John Heim, who is Executive Director of KASB, and Mark Tallman, whereas they are going to the larger school districts to meet with members who are representatives of those districts to try to improve engagement. And we had a good opportunity to sit down and talk about ways in which we can work to do better here within the district. They will be having some events coming up in August that I will be attending. Unfortunately, one of them is on my birthday on August 23rd, but I'm still going to go to Topeka. But I'm really excited about being a part of this and learning what I can to work with KASB to bring it back to the school district. On June 19th, I did go to the cohort A of the IT students, and again, had an opportunity to see how interesting technology is for our young people, but then they were taking it to a different level. They love to get on the phones, but they were learning how to actually put things together, and I was very impressed with that. And then finally, today I did go to the Migrant Leadership Academy luncheon. It's really good to sit down and talk to students. There was one in particular that I really bonded with, and I was great to hear from him, and would like to gave him an opportunity to reach out to let me know about his successes. Because a lot of times we put those programs into place and the young people do get engaged, but a lot of times they still have a lot that they have to deal with in their own personal lives. So the staff today at that had done very well to encourage them to try to reach out. Also learned that some of them are still learning how to be able to apply for scholarships, even to reach out and try to get grants. So it's a good program, and I'm looking forward to everything, and so I'd like to say thank you to the staff who was involved with that. And that's my report.
Well, thank you, and as you see, they enjoy themselves. But my takeaway from Dr. Yeagers is that as board members, we have a responsibility to know the district, know the programs. And if the constituents ask us, the last thing we want to say is, I don't know. But that we do at least know the vastness and what, how to respond. Okay, reports of the superintendent, sir.
Yes. I'd ask that the Kansas City Board of Education accept as an informational item a report on the Gannon decision as recommended by myself, Charles Fausto. I'm going to ask Bill Brady to come to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. The legislative session ended on May the 30th. The legislature and the governor complied with the Supreme Court ruling in 2018 that there was not enough funds within the 5-year plan to deal with the adequacy issue that the schools fair funding and the 4 plaintiff law schools had brought to the court. We got a ruling on June 14th. There's been a lot of publicity about it, so I'm sure you're probably familiar with, in general, what it said. But basically, two pieces. The first one is in terms of the money. They agreed with the $90 million that the state allocated, and said, although that did not actually work the math as the state had proposed with its Montoy resolution, it was close enough, is what the court said. So we were a little disappointed with that portion of it. We had anticipated more in the neighborhood of $360 million as opposed to 90, but that's the reality of the situation. The good news is the $90 million was done in a way that we needed it done. It's all about kids. It puts the money on the base amount and gives school boards maximum flexibility in how to allocate the resources. So that's the great news on the money side of it. The second part of it is really hasn't got a lot of play, or as much play in the media, but it's really important, is that the Supreme Court chose to hold on to the case because remember, we're talking about a 5-year funding formula. We're only in year 2 now. So we have 3 more years of funding to go. And we've had experience. We had experience with the Montoy case back in 2005 to 2008, where the state made a 3-year commitment. The courts accepted it the state got a year and a half into it and then backed up because of the national economy, going south and a number of other factors. So in that case, the courts did not keep the case in hand. So the plaintiff's only option was to refile a new case, and there rise the Gannon case. That's where the Gannon case came from. So the Gannon case started in 2010, and if the state complies with the final 3 years, then it will resolve itself by 2023. So that's the hope. Just a couple facts about what Gannon accomplished. It was all about adequacy and equity, and I just listed it. It's kind of amazing over the course of 9 years, the challenges, and the plaintiffs won this case 6 times, essentially. We have two district court opinions in our favor, 4 Supreme Court decisions in our favor. And we were able to maintain capital outlay equalization, which was really critical to KCK public schools. We were able to maintain LOB equalization over attempts to reduce it considerably. Those of you probably remember that have been on the board a few years, we had the block grant for 2 years. We were able to eliminate that. We've gone back to a formula that's based on, it's a cost-based formula, and that's really important to districts in Kansas, because what that says is that, no 2 school children, the cost to educate those children can be different because of the needs of the child. And so we don't lump everybody in from a cost standpoint and say, this is what you get. Basically, we have a series of weightings where you have funding for at-risk students. We have a weighting for ELL, special ed weighting. So we have resources that help direct the money to the students that are in most need of additional services. So that's really important. In the course of the 9 years, we're able to fund all-day kindergarten, which is huge. And the majority of the dollars are directed towards, again, base and the weightings, and away from more of a historical, where we'd gotten into a pattern of basically doing parochial sorts of things. If you could get the votes to do it in the legislature, you got it done, essentially. And we went more to a structured program where we're trying to basically allocate the dollars where student needs are. All told, over the 9-year period, $960 million. The Attorney General likes to talk about $1 billion more in base aid funding for schools. $960 million spread through 286 school districts. Base aid amount when we started was around $3,800, and again, with the last 3 years funded properly, as the courts have accepted, we'll be at $4,846, so over $1,000 on the base in that time period. At-risk weightings up. So lots of things to be excited about. Specifically for Kansas City, $56 million more in the base of school funding for students in the district. So where do we go from here? Well, as I mentioned, we have 3 more years of funding, and I've passed out to you a couple of the statements made immediately when the Supreme Court made the ruling, and you can see the contrast. You see the governor's response, where basically she says she's going to do everything she can to make the last 3 years happen as directed by the court. And then you have the Speaker of the House basically saying that we can't afford it, and we're going to have to make changes, or we're going to have to raise taxes. You can read it for yourself. So we're going to, we're going to have to basically defend it. We're going to have to monitor it, and we're going to be ready to go back to the core, albeit if, you know, we get in a situation that would dictate that. But we believe that with the governor and the majority of the legislature on our side, that we can see the last 3 years done properly. The other part of the bill that's important, what happens, you know, after the 5 years, the legislature put in statute a CPI, a COLA increase for the base. So in years 24, you know, on, there would be a CPI that would be available. And that's critical because, as you know, as board members, costs are rising, and you have to have some degree of understanding that the state's going to be a partner in helping move forward. So that's where we are. You know, it didn't come easy. There were a lot of interesting ideas. We had an alternative bill to the one that passed, House Bill 2395, that directed a lot of would have directed a lot of state resources to tuition tax credits to private schools. That was defeated. There was bills that put limitations on school boards on if they had certain levels of balances, then they basically would have to spend that down automatically where they get more resources. There was limitations on ELL students and how that spending would go. Even a proposal to not fund the years 4 and 5 and eliminate the CPI. But all of those provisions were not successful and were not part of the bill. But certainly assume we'll see some of that, you know, again starting next year. So it's at this point that I would like to just briefly acknowledge the role of the KCK legislative delegation. You know, we got a terrific delegation. We've got experienced people that are in good positions to help us, and we have 10 to 12 legislators, pretty good sized delegation by Kansas standards, and a lot of areas of the state, you know, have delegations where, you know, half of the district is not supportive of what the school board's doing and the administration's doing. So, you know, you're dealing with that. Where we have a delegation that really, from my perspective, you know, when I go and talk to them about the needs in KCK, I mean, they're not automatic, yeah, we're going to do that, but they're always wanting to know, they're always wanting to try to help, and it just makes a tremendous difference. We have our very own Representative Wynn, that's our ranking Democrat on House education budget, critical position, was instrumental in helping a lot of these bad things not happen. They all were generated on the House side, and she led a coalition to try to help keep that down. We have Senator Petty, who's the ranking Democrat on Senate Education Committee, does a lot of good for us in the Senate. We have Kathy Wolf Moore, who's the ranking D on the Budget Committee, Representative Kathy Wolf Moore, and Tom Burrows, Representative Burrows, who's on the Budget Committee. I mean, you just go down, Representative Curtis, Representative Fraunfelter, Representative Ruiz are all in great position. Even our newest member, Representative Braun, is a member of the Senate Ways and Means Committee. Doesn't always agree with us, but is always willing to listen, and I appreciate that. So we have a great delegation, and and I point that out to you as board members, as colleagues, elected officials. As you see them, they're back in, you know, KCK. The session's over. You'll be running into them more at community-type events. There may have been some at the migrant, maybe one of them or two of them at the migrant luncheon today. I don't know, but just say thank you and appreciate the work and continue to, you know, foster that cooperation that we've got going. So where we're going from here, I mean, we've got to obviously stay on point, monitor, any attempts to undo the 5 years. The governor and the Children's Cabinet is really getting aggressive on some early childhood initiatives. We want to be, right up front and understand that and be a part of that dialogue. We still have the dyslexia task force that's meeting, and we'll meet this fall, and we'll report on that and keep abreast of that. We have the second year of the mental health pilot, which KCK is one of 6 districts that is part of that pilot, and we've seen some success for that. And the funding was altered a little bit, but still is workable for us, and we want to continue to stride forward in that area. It's great for kids. It'll be a busy summer and fall, and I just appreciate the opportunity to attend and watch out for KCK interests as best I can in Topeka, and appreciate working with Dr. Faust. And, easy to get a hold of, is quick to respond, and just delight to work with.
Thank you.
Questions for Bill Brady? Comments? Well, I'll say it's a pleasure to work with you. You're better this year, probably because I'm assistant minority leader, but I do have still some skin on the concrete from some of those meetings that I would text Dr. Faust and say, it's going to be bad, and he texts back, yeah, I already heard from the Senate. So it gets mean. I've been in the legislature for 20 years, so I've lived through the special sessions and the block grant. And the sad part is, and you can testify to this, that there are districts that need help, and as you said, their representatives do not support public education. And I wonder how they're elected. But it's the message that is delivered when they get home. Thank you for your work, and I had a couple questions.
Okay.
Now, define CPI. We know what it means, but how does it impact the funding?
Well, it would be a Midwest CPI. It would be the rate of inflation.
Consumer Price Index.
Consumer Price Index, yeah, for the Midwest region, and it would be for the previous year, and then going forward. But that's
the
the
base.
other. I mean, that's the other part of. I mean, I think you're on target. That I mean, it's real generic in terms of the language and statute, and
Yeah.
there'll probably be efforts, not only not to do it, there'll probably be efforts to define it more tightly. Is it on the base? Is it on the base and the weightings?
Okay.
Would make a huge difference. The at-risk weighting is over 300 million statewide alone, so it would make a huge difference if it's not on the at-risk weighting.
So something to look for.
Yeah.
When you say KCK has gotten 56 million, that's not this year.
No, that's built
Sounded
into the
good.
base. That's built into the base over the 9-year period.
The 9 years, okay. What's the School for Fair Funding? Is that coalition going to stay together?
I think it is. I mean, that decision will be made later this fall by the members. There's 4 plaintiff schools, but there's 40 school districts that help fund Schools for Fair Funding. And, they're going to meet this fall and decide where they're going to go in terms of doing a monitoring. I mean, obviously, it won't be geared up with the need for attorneys, but there'll be a lobbying piece of it to make sure.
And KCK was a plaintiff as well as a member of the School
Yes.
for Fair Funding.
Yes.
One last question. Now, explain to me, and this was the log jam. This is year 2 of the 5-year plan?
We're just
Said?
finishing year 2.
Okay, so we're going to year 3,
Yeah. I'm sorry, we're just going into year 2. of
going
the
into year
5-year
2.
plan. Yeah.
And the court said 90 million was okay,
90 million additional for inflation.
additional. Now, does that mean next year there's a new 90 million?
No.
They're going to count this same 90 million.
This 90 million, it's going to be billed in school districts' budgets. It's going to be distributed to all 286 districts, and you're going to be able to keep that next year, but you're not going to get an additional 90 million on top of that.
So that was the breaking point.
That was the terminology difference. Our, never before had state funding, school funding, and the experience that I've had been thought of in terms of the same dollars the next year being perceived as additional dollars. The same dollars are built into the base of the operation. You've got to have that the next year, obviously, or you don't have, your basis, crumbles. So,
Wait, so translate. So if CPI doesn't kick in till year 5, essentially the budget stays the same, that whatever the total budget
you get the final 3 years of the 5-year plan.
will be the same amount.
It's about $105 million a year, so it'll be roughly about $5 million, or Dr. Faust probably knows the specifics, but about
Right.
$5 million a year for the district.
So the
In years
90 they broke up in
that'll be
3
additional.
years.
You'll get an additional 5 years in year 3,
4,
4,
and 5.
This year, you'll get roughly $10 million because you'll get your share of the 90 and the second year of the 5-year plan money, which is roughly
And next year we get what?
5.
5. Got it. That's where it gets a little goofy, because it sounds great, because the language says an additional 90 million, and that's not what happens.
That was what we argued in court, is that it should be 90 million additional for each of the
Yeah.
4 final years. And the Supreme Court said they'd go with the 90 million one time.
But the good point is they retain jurisdiction,
Retain
because the
it.
legislature can change its mind on a dime. Thank you. Other questions, comments for Mr. Brady?
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
See you soon. It's crazy. Dr. Faust.
Yes. I'd ask that the Kansas City Board of Education accept the Greenway Strategy Group Strategic Plan proposal as recommended by myself, Superintendent of Schools. So we are represented here? Yes, okay. We'll come to the-
Welcome.
Well, good evening, Dr. Faust and board members.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Martha Greenway, and I am very pleased to be here to talk with you about our strategic planning proposal. So I presume I'll just walk briefly through the summary PowerPoint that we've presented, and then we'll be happy to take any questions that you might have. So our group provides analysis and strategic guidance to social impact organizations to improve outcomes for children, families, and learners of all ages. And so listed here are some of the various types of expertise that we can provide. In this case, we're specifically talking about strategy design, implementation, and monitoring. We work with education organizations, independent and charter and public schools, school districts, state education agencies, higher education organizations, and nonprofit organizations that support children and youth. I'd like to just say a little bit about our value as a consulting group and some of the things that we bring as a mix that is somewhat, we believe, unique in this field of consulting. So to begin, we have very strong skills in research and analysis. Some strategic planning processes essentially bring all the stakeholders in the room, ask people what their perceptions are, put a bunch of dots and prioritize things, and then move forward. But we're not necessarily grounded in the hard truths about our current situation or an understanding of what's possible. And so we bring that external analysis and expertise to the table to help you ensure that you're working from an objective picture of your current reality. We also have access to information on comparable organizations across the United States, so we can put this information in context for you. However, on the flip side, there are also consulting firms who will come in, get a bunch of data, go sit in an office, and pop out and say, we now know what you need to do. And so in addition and in blended with this research and analytical expertise, we also have very strong facilitation and collaboration skills. so that we will engage stakeholders across the district to understand their perceptions, to understand their experiences, to share the data with them, and to have them interpret and help us understand what the information means. We'll work with teams of people throughout the district to actually develop the plan. Because without that, it becomes our knowledge and not your knowledge, which leads to the third area where we add value, which is coaching and facilitation. So in the development of the plan, as I mentioned, there will be teams from the district that will be doing the work, and we will assign consultants to serve as coaches to them. All of the training materials, all of the resources, all of the tools that we use are left with the district so that you can replicate the process over time, and so that we're building skills of the people in the district to actually sustain the implementation, so that when we walk away, it's not simply a bunch of documents that then people don't understand or know what to do with, but that people actually own the process, they have the skills, and you have the tools to continue the implementation. We bring team members based on what your district needs. So I'm going to share some of the background of the core team that will be available to you, but we also have other people who have expertise in specific areas. So for example, if we need to get into some more in-depth budgetary analysis, we have people on the team that can bring that expertise that we could bring in. If we have issues around processes and process design and business improvement, we have people with expertise that we can bring in on that. But we only bring them forward as needed for the amount of time they're needed for your project, which makes it very efficient while you're getting also the benefit of very highly capable people. Which brings me to the last box here, strategy experts with practical experience in complex organizations. So everyone who works with us has actually done this work inside of an organization. So personally, I've been the deputy superintendent of a large urban school district. I've managed strategy and performance evaluation for the United Way at the national level and in 2 local organizations. We have people who've worked with Turner Broadcasting, the National Park Service, IBM, Dell, other large school districts. So we know what it's like to actually bring these changes to fruition. It's not that you have people who have graduate degrees and we're right out of school and we've learned a bunch of things from books and we're here to tell you how to do it. But we've actually lived that, and we understand the complexity of getting people to buy in, to really embrace change, and what it takes to really make meaningful transitions in a large, complex organization with a variety of stakeholders and constituents like you have. So all of that allows us to come together and support your strategic planning effort in order to bring about measurable growth aligned with your mission, which is really what we are about. Here are some sample clients that we've worked with. Actually, last night I was in Lawrence, Kansas. Their board just adopted their strategic plan. So they voted on it last night. And if you go on their website, you can see the plan that they've adopted. I think that by working with Lawrence, it has given us a good understanding of the student data that's available in Kansas. We've been looking at the state website. We're familiar with the Kansas State Assessment, some of the nuances around funding and so forth in Kansas, so this would not be new territory to us. We've also worked with several school districts that demographically are very similar to Kansas City, Kansas, such as Pittsburgh and St. Paul. And so that has allowed us to really build some skills in understanding the nuances of highly diverse communities. We did support the strategic plan in Union County Public Schools, where Dr. Faust was most recently. We worked with the school district in Palm Beach County, Florida, which is actually the 10th largest school district in the United States. So we've worked with really large ones, smaller ones such as Lawrence Public Schools. And we're also supporting the entire state of North Dakota, which interestingly has fewer students than the district where I used to work. But that's been an interesting project, bringing all of the state agencies together that support students to try to coordinate their work through a vision steering committee. We're currently working on a strategic plan for the Georgia Tech College of Engineering, which is the largest college of engineering in the United States. And we've done a number of projects with Georgia Tech working on really the leading edge thinking around technology and student learning. We worked on a project with the Wallace Foundation specifically to support school districts that were working to improve their principal pipeline. We worked on a project with the Board of Regents for the University System of Georgia to understand their programs around college access and completion. And similarly, Achieve Palm Beach County is a community collaboration that includes nonprofit, government, faith-based organizations to come together, and the business community to come together to try to increase the number of people who have some type of post-high school certificate or degree. So these are the types of organizations and projects. This is just a sampling that we've been involved in, but we think that this brings a lot of context that we can bring to bear to support the Kansas City School District. So this is our team. I've already told you a little bit about myself. Also supporting the project will be Yanika Daniels. Yanika brings some deep expertise in strategy and talent management. She was actually the previous director of talent management for a large urban school district. She worked as a managing teacher recruitment for Teach for America. She has an interesting background. Her education is actually in logistics and engineering. She has a degree from Vanderbilt and a degree from MIT. And she previously worked with Dell Computers and IBM. So she's got really strong analytical expertise, but also a real passion for people and education. So she would be directly involved in the organization. Mirelle Herrera has background in college readiness and educational equity. I don't know if the board is familiar with the Education Trust, but this is an organization out of Washington, D.C. that really studies the achievement gap and reasons for racial disparities among student performance across the United States. And so Mirelle was most recently a member of the data and policy team. So she's not only familiar with some unique ways to look at student performance, but also a national picture on where effective practices are landing in this area. So she previously had several experiences in education policy and also worked for a U.S. Congresswoman and a Texas Senator as the education policy advisor. So she has a master's in public administration and education policy and program evaluation from George Washington University. And then Patty Fogelsong will also be supporting the project as needed. She worked specifically with the Union County School System project. She's been a business analyst with the National Park Service. She actually has a background in geology, but made a transition to education through a program known as the Broad Academy. So very briefly, the way we'll approach the project is to begin with an analysis phase, where, as I mentioned, this is where our analytical skills come to bear to both understand the past performance of the district, but also the future opportunities in the community that we need to be aware of. We will then work collaboratively with the school district to confirm your vision and mission. So we won't necessarily build a vision and mission from scratch. Obviously, the district has spent quite a bit of time on that, but we do want to affirm that that's directionally correct given our learning. We will then work towards developing a set of priority student outcomes. So the district is already clearly talking about student outcomes. It's clear in your values, it's clear in your Diploma Plus work, but to really articulate over the next 5 years, where do we need to see progress in our student achievement? Where are our big areas of leverage where we can make improvement? And then once we understand that, we will define what we call strategic themes. And so these are the areas within the district work where we need to change our practice, to look at new ways of doing business. So the way I like to think about this is if the priority outcomes are about students, the strategic themes are about the grown-ups. What do the grown-ups in the district need to do differently in order for the outcomes to improve? And this is an area where we find many districts in their strategies fall short. Because we'll set goals about here's what we want, but then we don't step back and be truly honest about, in order for those things to happen, these are the areas of our work where we need to think about doing business differently. And so these will emerge from the data, but also from our engagement with your community and listening to all stakeholders, including students, teachers, parents, and administrators. Once those themes are defined, then we get into very specifics about what are the objectives for exactly what needs to be improved and what are the initiatives or projects we're going to put in place over the next 5 years to make those changes that need to occur. Another place that we find many strategic plans fall short is in phase 3, which is the action planning, which is being real about what it's going to take to get these things done. Who's going to do it? What are the steps that need to happen? When is it going to occur? How long is it going to take? How will we know when it's happened? What resources do we have to use to support it? What are the risks? How are we going to involve our stakeholders along the way so that everybody has buy-in and understands what's happening? So we would support the district, again, through working with teams to develop very detailed action plans that will lay all of this out. And then lastly, ensure that the board is left with processes to monitor on a regular basis whether or not what's in the action plans is actually being implemented and whether or not the district is making progress on those priority student outcomes. So I won't go through the definitions. I pretty much explained these as we went through the process. I will just also say, though, that we're not dogmatic about our language. So some people, you'll see when I show you what we came up with in St. Paul, they really didn't like that term strategic themes. So they called those areas of focus. So if you want to call something something else, we're fine with that. It's the concepts that we think are really important. So I know you can't read this, but it is online in the board packet, so you could review it more carefully there. But I just wanted you to see that this can be translated into a one-page document. So in the case of Palm Beach, they actually created some icons around what they came up with as 4 long-term priority student outcomes. This is one of the wealthiest counties in the United States. So we're all familiar with Palm Beach, Florida. However, it is also one of the poorest communities in the United States. They have parts along the coast that resemble Haiti when you go and visit them. They had among the lowest levels of 3rd grade literacy in the state of Florida, which was just inexcusable. And so they put that out there. Instead, we have got to increase reading levels by 3rd grade or none of the other things that we're trying to work on can occur. So they then identified 4 areas where they wanted to work on transforming their practice. One around effective and relevant instruction, one around positive and supportive school climate, one around talent development. In their case, they had some real issues around district adult performance. On the first day of school the year we started working with them, only 60% of the students got to school on time. And among the special education students, only 30% of them got to school on time. So the high performance culture in their case was about creating high performance expectations for the grown-ups, whereas the one around positive and supportive school climate was about the student experience. So these strategic themes are different depending on the reality of what's happening in a particular school district. Then they set objectives and a set of specific strategic initiatives. This is Pittsburgh's. So they chose to array theirs differently. So these are all things that, again, the district can have flexibility around. They listed their outcomes across the top. The Pittsburgh website has some wonderful information about their implementation and how they're doing within each of these. And you can see that within their strategic initiatives, they have actually labeled the phases. So this is another thing that we would work with the superintendent and leadership team around. If you really have transformative strategic initiatives, big projects that are going to change the way people do their work, you cannot launch them all at once. And if you try to do that, then everybody it's like the starting gun goes off and everybody runs as fast as they can, and at the end all we know is we're really tired. So what we will do is think very carefully about how much we can take on at once, what is the proper phasing, not priority. Some things might be really important, but we just don't have the resources to launch them first, or we need to do something else before we're ready for that. But to think carefully about starting them over a 3-year period so that they can all be completed within 5 years. And so the Pittsburgh plan lays that out. And then lastly, this is St. Paul. So they borrowed a lot from Pittsburgh, but they organized theirs a little bit differently as well. So I just invite you to take a look at these, and you can see that in the case of St. Paul, they have a focus area. And remember I said they switched from the theme to focus area because they like that language better. They have one around family community engagement, which the other school districts didn't have. But St. Paul is a community where the population speaks over 60 languages. And they have Somali, they have Hmong, they have Spanish. And so to get each community involved is a real priority for that district. And so they have that as a separate theme that would not have made sense in Pittsburgh, where they actually have very few students who speak other languages. So this is just some examples of how it's really relevant to what's happening in your district. So in terms of timeline, This is how we would see it today. This is something that, as our first step, we would sit with the leadership team and work this out in more detail. But essentially, between July and September, we would be about gathering data, learning about the community, and seeking input from stakeholders about what they see as the assets of the district that they want to ensure are protected and maintained, and where they see opportunities for improvement. The October to December timeframe would be where we try to really center around what are those priority student outcomes, what are those strategic themes, and work to develop the strategic initiatives that would support change. And then the action planning phase would take place January to March, with the goal that enough would be known about the phase 1 initiatives that it could inform your budget process for the 2021 school year. So at this point, I will stop and see what questions the board has.
Questions?
So based upon what you know about Kansas City, Kansas School District, do you already have in mind how you would create or customize what we are currently doing to transition into one of these phases? Or is it truly a blank slate and we share with you your ideas and then that's when it starts forming together?
Yeah. At this point, I would really say it's a blank slate. My impression is that you have some really solid thinking around what you want to become. The how you're going to get there is not as evident, at least to someone externally. So I think what we'd want to do is affirm the work that's already happened around the vision, the mission, the outcomes that you've started to think about, see if maybe some other things pop up based on some external review and some extensive stakeholder engagement. But where I see your opportunity is really thinking about what are we going to do so that we actually see improvement on these areas that we have claimed are important to us. But I think beyond that, I think it really would emerge from what we learn about the district.
And as we think about key players or leadership overview, where do you see the board fitting in that? Not that it's us versus them or anything like that, but where do we as a board fit in along with leadership?
Right. And so every district is a little bit different in that regard, but I'll just tell you some sort of what is a typical approach. So we would like to understand kind of early in the process if the board has specific expectations about how the process is managed. You know, we want to make sure we hear from legislators that you were just speaking about, who obviously are going to have a great deal of influence on what happens in the district over the next few years. So we would want to understand that, and we'd also want to understand your expectations about what you want in the actual plan, what you think the plan needs to include. And sometimes we've done that in a public meeting, other times we've done that in individual phone interviews, and other times we've done it in small groups where we might meet with 2 or 3 board members at a time and have that conversation early in the process. As we go through, we generally take a stop with the board when we have a draft of the priority outcomes and the strategic themes. We would share that with the board as a draft, make sure that the board is comfortable with testing that, and then we go out and hold a series of community input forums where anyone can come. In addition, we can go to specific groups. So if you have a particular advisory group or a group you want us to go out and meet with, or a student council, for example. But we check in with the board before we take that out for public input, partly just so you see it first, but also to make sure that there's nothing there that we want to change before we test it. After testing, we would come back and say, here's something that we need to change. We don't often get things that we need to change, but I'll just tell you, in the case of Palm Beach, they actually started with 3 outcomes, one around 3rd grade reading, one around high school graduation, and one around readiness for college and career. And the community said, we don't get this jump from 3rd grade to high school graduation. And we believe that there are serious issues with the transition into high school that are causing children not to be successful. And so we came back to the board and said we need to add a priority outcome around the 8th to 9th grade transition. So that's just an example.
Okay.
So we test it, we come back to the board and say, here's what we heard from the community, here's some changes that we recommend. Then we go, again, work with teams, generally of staff, with input from school-based personnel and others as needed to develop the strategic initiatives. And then we bring that back to the board for approval. So there's really those up front, when we have a draft to test, after we've tested it, and then when the strategic initiatives are developed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have any questions. I took the time to go through this and look at it. And it is an intricate way in which this planning proposal has been established, and it's very intriguing. There are various levels that we will be working toward to gain, and I see the benefits of it for not only the students, the teachers, parents, and even the community in itself. And I think this would be a good initiative that we can put into place that will help us to even take it to the next level in order to help our students. And so I thank you for what you have said and how you presented it, and I think it's a very good program. It's something that is necessary for us here within the district. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
First, thank you, because the key thing that you said that stood out in my mind was, we have these goals, we have these things, but we never really looked at, have we accomplished them and how to get to it? So my question is on cost. How much is this?
Okay. So the proposal that we've submitted is for, I believe it's $99,975. That includes everything. And so what we will do, and just want to reiterate this, we will do the analysis, we will facilitate the meetings, but we will also engage teams of people within the district to do the thinking and do the work, and we will have coaches. So we will have coaches on site to work with staff, we will have coaches remotely to work with staff, and so that is really the model that we use, is not, as I mentioned, like running off into another community and doing the work and popping back, but really being present and serving as team champions for your people so that they are left with new skills and ways of doing business. So it lives beyond the period of our work, and we leave you with all of the tools and materials so that you can continue the process.
So if you would start with us in July,
Yes, ma'am. I believe
And-
that's what Dr. Faust would prefer.
and this would go on, now it ends here on March, but I'm assuming it's going to be, you'd be here a couple of years, or?
So our engagement generally would end in March, and we would leave you with the tools to continue. There have been cases where we've been asked on a much more limited basis to provide some ongoing feedback and support. But by March, you should have it. I mean, you should have what you need to do. You should have action plans developed. You should have the training materials. When it comes to the next round of initiatives, you can take it. I do get calls periodically from Pittsburgh where we can't remember how we did this, we can't find this, and we're here on a line to help all the way through the implementation as you need it. But you will be ready to roll this out to the community and start funding and getting ready for the work by March, unless there's a reason that you all decide to take longer, but that is very realistic.
How often, okay, in my tenure in the district, we've had so many different 5-year plans. Now, we do it now, and then we reassess another 5 years, come up with a different plans, or do we tweak?
Yes,
How
that's
do
a
you-
really good question. So the way I like to think about it is you have a plan for the next 5 years that will constantly evolve.
Okay.
And what we will leave the district with is a framework where these strategic initiative teams will report to the board on how things are going. We can make course corrections. We can add a new initiative if we find that we're not getting movement on an outcome that we expected and we need to do something differently. We can decide we thought this was a good idea, but now we don't. So it's a living, fluid document. It generally takes 4 years or so for all of the strategic initiatives to get off the ground to a point where they can be sustained. And then they become part of what we call ongoing work. And then it's time to think about what do we need to do next. In addition to reporting on the progress of the strategic initiatives, We will also work with the district to create an outcome measurement dashboard so that for those outcomes, those priority student outcomes, there are key indicators that the board will also monitor so that we're both looking at, are we doing the work we said we were going to do, but also is that work making the difference for students that we wanted it to? And those tools we will leave with the district and help you create the initial round of those. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And thank you. And I would like to circle back to Dr. Yeager's question. I'm in the legislature, so what concerns me is that here's a proposal that, again, we had to ask you, how much does it cost?
Right.
That's usually in a proposal.
I
So
thought it was in the version that we
Am I
sent.
missed
It's
it?
in the original. You have, if you go back to your, the board preview, it's in there, where we did the pre-meetings. It's at the bottom, the entire cost.
Okay, well, one would think that would be here.
Yeah, I apologize. I asked if you all would have access to the proposal, and I was told
Okay.
that you did,
And
so.
where is it? Is it in our files someplace here?
Yes, well, if you go back to your folder with that blue folder that has all the,
This blue folder, has, he's there in there. Okay, good, I'll find it there. And then, is in the proposal then just exactly what you said about the dashboard and the outcomes? Is that also in the proposal?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All of the deliverables are listed there, and then what's included in that price in terms of all expenses, all costs, so that is a fixed price also. So it's not a variable cost, it's a fixed price, and it includes all travel, all expenses, all consulting time, and so forth.
Excuse me a second, here is it.
I'll send it to you.
Is it in
What
this
you have is the cost.
This document?
It's at the bottom of, I would have to pull mine, but I'll send you. But it was when we had our budget pre-sessions, we went
Right.
over those, so you were,
But now that we have a
informed.
real person here,
Yes, ma'am.
it's great to put the name with the data.
Yes.
Before we approve of a $100,000 proposal for essentially July to March.
That's correct.
Okay, and that's July 1 to March 31st, or what?
Yes, ma'am, March 30th.
well, that's technically
But
time period, but what actually, let me explain, because it's a little more intricate, more detailed. I mean, she gave you the overview, but what you actually have are there are individuals who will be considered sponsors, there are individuals who are considered owners of that, and so from each department, based on the themes of the program, or not the program, but the plan, they will present to the board. Currently, there's no way for you to hold anyone accountable because you have no accountability measures in place. And so, yes, it may seem like it's $100,000, but you think about over 5 years, what is that? That's $20,000 a year for an instrument that you're using to make sure that you are telling your constituents, this is what you voted for me in to do, to make sure that the district is doing turnaround work. So how do you measure it right now? So when you look at it, there will be individuals who will present based on the goals, themes that are come out of this intensive, and I don't use that word lightly, the intensive meetings that you have with the planning committee. They will come back and they tell us and they vet it, they make sure we present it to the board, and then it could be monthly that each member of that strategic theme, when we're working on a theme, you're getting a report on how does it work, where are we. I've seen it used as a red light, green light, red light, yellow light, green light. I've seen it that we're not there yet. This is what we have to do. We've seen it where we've got to go back to the table and make sure that we have the individuals that are in place. But it's just not, you don't want the team to hold the hand all the way through. They have to show you what to do, and then they're out. So it's not necessarily that, hey, we've paid $20,000 for a program and they're gone. You have to think about it in the broad scheme of things. We have a vision statement that states we're going to be one of the top 10 school districts in the nation. And so I'll ask you, how are you going to get there?
And that's a solid question. And we in the community continue to say there's, when you're at the bottom 4 in the county, how are you going to get out of that to the top? So,
And actually, Dr. Nguyen, I want to just correct myself in response to your question. We will work with the district leadership to put this in the form of an actual contract. And if in that conversation it's determined it's going to take to June 30th to do the work,
Right.
then that would be the extent of the work. So it's based on a fixed price for a deliverable that includes the things I described to you. And we're at it until we both agree that that work has been completed. And that is what we are proposing.
And while you're looking to send it to me, the other question Dr. Yeager asked brought to my mind the State Board of Education 5-year assessment, ESSA or whatever it's called.
Right.
So how does that, so based on your comment, that will go on independently, or Dr. Faust, or will that go together, or?
So it's two totally different things. What the
Correct.
feds are saying, that's one thing, but we want to know, how do we monitor the work we're doing?
Okay.
And so it should all be tied into student achievement. And so what a strategic plan does is it helps you focus on the focus, so that you're not getting out here and you're doing things that are not giving you what you've asked for. Yes, there are federal guidelines that we have to acquire, make sure we're doing through ESSA, but your strategic plan, yes, encompasses that, because it's all, you don't necessarily name it in there when you're doing it, it's broad. So when you're writing a vision statement, when you're writing a mission, the vision is going to give you this up in the air, and your vision is going to tell you how to get there. And so if we're wanting to improve graduation rate, right now we're at 73%. If we're trying to get to 90%, what are we going to do? Currently, we're looking at our all kindergartners reading at 90%. Well, we didn't meet that goal. We still have schools where kindergartners are at 13%. How are you going to get there? What is it going to take to get there? If we're looking at having third graders reading on grade level, because that is actually literature that most districts are using, we don't have any of those things. So will that get you ESSA? Will that get rid of our CSI? That's where the state has come in and deemed our 14 lowest performing schools, and they've dinged us. How are we holding them accountable? Only by, and I'll be honest, only by pushing the needle and saying you will. So I have you will statements, and we set up measures with them, but there's not a district strategic plan to tell them where they're going and how we're going to get there. So would that bring in, that's just one piece of it. Federal funding, what does that look like? We do have to make sure it's in there, but you don't list that in your strategic plan. It's just a measure, that's one measure, so you may have a little nugget that's there.
Right.
But we want to make sure that if it's our ELL population, how are we graduating them? How are we making sure that they're not being considered what we call lifers? They come to the program and they never get out of the ELL program. That's actually not what's it's set up for. So what are we doing? But we would have to look at the data, look at all of the matrix to see what are our priorities. And it's not like I could name them. We would have to make sure that their data correlates with what we're saying, because we may think something, but it may be something totally different than what we actually think. And we are not capable of doing that.
No. And that perhaps, that's a great explanation. That maybe wasn't the real question I wanted to know, but the answer is that, I guess that avenue, that silo that the state board requires will go on and just fulfill whatever requirements it needs, while the strategic plan is going more broad.
And another way to think about it is that there are various compliance requirements that the district needs to face. You know, ESSA is one. There's also the Kansas accreditation of schools, Kansas KSA, is that what it's called? You know, these are things that the district has to respond to. And they include measures of student performance and targets. But what the district does to make the data better is not defined by these external groups. That's what you have to figure out.
Right.
And so that's what the strategic plan gives you. And then we can actually help you with whatever compliance-oriented format you have to fill out. You can use this now to plug into that format. So it doesn't replace the compliance systems.
No,
right? But it
I
gives you
understand
the
it didn't replace it
tools
all,
and
just
data.
that it would have to continue because
Yes.
another agency is requiring it.
Exactly.
But that perhaps you will not speak to each other. These two,
They will definitely align. If they don't align, then we haven't done our job right.
okay?
If the ESSA plan says we're going to do this and the strategic plan says something else, then we have not done our job right, and that will drive the people in this organization crazy, and nobody will be sure what they're supposed to focus on. So they've all got to point in the same direction. They've all got to use the same targets, if you will.
Okay.
But the strategic plan has the essence of the how, in terms of what work are we going to do internally in
Right.
order to make these compliance
Right.
things improve. So the KSA is basically an empty shell, and you fill in, here's what we're going to work on. And we may have to, instead of saying outcomes, we may have to say goals. Instead of saying initiatives, we may have to say activities, right? But, smart people, we can make that transition. But they need to align. They serve different purposes, but they will align.
Well, we have to have this discussion
Yes,
because we have staff members here
right.
who will be some of the people you speak with. And so if we don't get it clear now,
Right.
then you come back in July and say X, and we'll say, no, it was something else that you had
I understand
said.
the purpose of the question.
Okay, thank you
Absolutely.
very much. We didn't find it.
Just like to say, I agree with Dr. Faust. It is the focus on student achievement, and we have to start somewhere to start making sure that what we want our students to have, that we will get there. This plan will bring that about.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it's called strategic plan, it's not called Greenway.
So do we need to make a motion?
Greenway, okay. We'll find it someplace, thank you.
You're very welcome.
So generic question, does the team come and stay, or does the team, come, I don't remember what you said, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the team will be on site, but not the whole time. So we will come, we will do the trainings. We are generally here for 2 or 3 days to provide support. Then we'll provide remote support. Then we will come back and be on site again. So that is the way in which we work. So back to, we really want to empower the people in the district to do some thinking. We give training, we give protocols, we give tools. So all of the toolkit, if you will, is provided.
Great presentation. Where are you guys located?
So we're kind of in a number of different areas, but the majority of us are in Atlanta.
Gotcha.
So do we need to make a motion?
Just a minute. Okay. Because as mentioned before, if the community asks details, we would like to be able to provide an explanation.
Absolutely.
Because as one of our board members said, we've seen strategic plans, and they come and they go.
Yes, ma'am.
So in a nutshell, you are on site, you create, you engage, and then your document is our way to hold you accountable
Yes, ma'am.
for your work.
Yes, ma'am. So I would say that we build skills and capacity of the people within the district
Okay.
by providing interactive training opportunities, by providing tools and resources, and providing coaching and our expertise. So we also have a wealth of access to literature, understanding of what other districts are doing. So we don't say, here's what you should do, but we say, well, this district's done this. Perhaps you would want to consider that. So we bring ideas around effective practices. So all of that we bring to your teams, and then we work them through a very structured process to create the plan that we described, right? And then we leave you, so it's not as though we do all that and then we say, oh no, those are our copyrighted things, you know, we're going home now, if you want more help, you have to pay for it. All of that is now yours to continue to utilize in this process.
Thank you. Clarity.
Sure,
Clarity is important to
of
us.
course.
It's now in our email.
Okay, thank you. Their proposal to us. Correct? That's what you sent?
Yes.
Okay. You ready? Okay. Yes.
No, we would need that one approved. We would need for them, we need a motion for this one to accept the proposal.
I move to approve.
A second.
It's been moved and second to accept the Greenway Strategy Group strategic planning proposal. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed. Thank you, and
Thank
look
you so
forward to
much.
seeing you in July.
July, won't
Okay.
be long. So thank you so much. I
You're
look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Ask that the Kansas City Board of Education approve the proposal for all insurance coverage for the 2019-2020 as submitted by Dennis Covington, Chief Finance Officer, and is recommended by myself, Charles Faust, Superintendent of Schools.
Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board Member, Superintendent. I have Scott Gray with us, our Senior Account Executive with Aon. What you have before you is our recommendations for the 1920 insurance rates. Before he comes up, I would just like to say I first met with Scott and told him, with me being a new CFO, I'm not accepting price increases on our insurance policies for next year unless they was due to like increase in property because of our new school. So he left my office. He said, Dennis, I don't know if I'm able to do that. I said, well, when you come back before me, I need to see at least flat. The first one he brought back was with our current provider, and it was like at a 4%, 3 or 4% increase, which was well below the industry. I was like, no, that's not good enough. He went back and researched with another provider, and so on and so on. But what you have before you now is a decrease in our insurance policies going for our 1920 school year. And I'll let Scott come up and explain to you all what we're changing.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Covington got to open up his gift before everybody else, which is fine with me. Brief background on the market conditions currently. We've endured a very strong, strange year when it comes to property values, property rates, due to the large catastrophic losses that have taken place over the last 2 years. The property market and property carriers are really starting to demand rate increases now, which are getting to the point where they're into the 20 to 25% range, even for organizations, municipalities, school districts with no losses, with no exposure, no catastrophic exposure. For those who are in Tier 1 counties, like in Harris County in Texas or in Florida, we're seeing 60 and 70 and 80% or higher rate increases because of their locations and their exposure to catastrophic loss. So having said that, we anticipated that and knew that that was coming. Our discussions with Mr. Covington, with Ms. Motley earlier in the year were predicated on what was going on in the marketplace. The casualty market's doing somewhat the same, but it's not nearly as volatile. We're still seeing slight increases, but not dramatic increases. But we prepared them with the information that this is going to be a very challenging year for the school district to see reductions. And the best thing that we could probably do is try to reduce that as far as possible and keep hammering with the carriers and marketing to leverage that so that we've got competition to create that ability to reduce rate and premium, which is what we've done. When we sat down and talked to them, our intention was that we're going to try to get as close to flat as possible. We introduced the competition, which continued to drive it back and forth. I have before you two different options, one with the income. Dennis, I think you gave them both, but I'm not sure. Just the one with Liberty? Okay. The option that you have in front of you is the Liberty Mutual, the best option with all of the other lines of coverage in it. The Liberty Mutual is the casualty piece. And I call it the Liberty option because they're the only difference in your program from last year versus what Glatfelter was. And Glatfelter came in with a good, solid opportunity. They came in at flat, but they didn't start at flat. They started at a 5 to 10% increase. We have driven them back and forth, and we've played the two carriers against each other to get those rates down to the point where now Liberty has got the best opportunity for you. They provide great claim service and great ability for you to have on-site claims person, loss control person to provide additional free help along with what Aon provides, so that we've got strength for you from risk experience, risk loss exposure, and help in making a safer district for the students and the teachers and everyone who works here by doing that. On top of that, Liberty Mutual has offered a 2-year rate guarantee. So because, and that's unheard of right now in the industry. Carriers just are not doing 2-year rate guarantees on casualty programs. We've talked them into doing that. So the only caveat to that is that your loss ratios would need to be 30% or below, which if you look at your averages over the last 5 years, your auto loss average is 27%, your GL loss average is 17%. Highly achievable for the district, as long as we're still using the risk mitigation factors and practices that we practice currently. So we've had some really good discussion back and forth with the carriers, and the biggest piece is that property and the casualty. We have the ancillary programs as well for those. Those carriers haven't changed, and they're all within a similar range, but the Liberty program that's plugged in is the one that gives you the very best of both worlds, by giving you the services, giving you the rate, giving you the guarantee, and reducing your premiums by $56,000 for this year over last year in a market that we're not seeing reductions. Questions?
So what's our total price?
Total price would be $1,174,522 versus $1,231,355 the year before.
And that price is guaranteed for 2 years?
The rates are guaranteed.
Rates.
If your exposures change, the premiums would change based on the exposures.
Okay.
The rates for the casualty piece, which would be the auto, the general liability, the umbrella, the educator's legal, and the employment practices.
Okay.
So 5 different. The other thing too with Liberty, because we would be moving the employment practices and the educator's legal to Liberty from XL Catlin, we've already gotten approval for McEnany Van Cleve to continue as your legal counsel for those lines of coverage for your defense. So we've done that in advance. We told them that we could not agree or recommend that we bind coverage with them unless they did that first. So we were able to smooth that out ahead of time.
So, Mr. Covington, is that price coverage in here, in the file? Did I not scroll down again?
Should be at the very bottom.
I thought I did.
Yeah.
Estimated premium summaries.
Well, that's nothing.
I have a hard copy if you need it, ma'am.
Got it. Thank you.
Got it?
You say it's Traveler. What's Travelers?
Travelers is your property program.
Be kind.
And that's where we knew that we were going to have the challenge, but doing the casualty the way we did, we were able to offset that, what we fully expected from them. Even at that, you're at a 5.5 cent rate per $100 in property values, which is extremely competitive. You were below a nickel rate prior to this year. Now, we did market them and to 12 to 15 different large carriers that have interest in public schools, and they couldn't match the rate for that. So Travelers was still the best, even though they show an increase, they're still the best program for the district.
22% increase, yeah.
What do you need? Motion? Need a motion?
I have a question. Where it says cyber liability, there's nothing there, so that's not a concern?
Cyber liability, there is something there. It's there are variables in the cyber liability exposures number of PHI, PII, PCI, personally, health insurance, health information, personal information, credit card information if you're taking credit cards. There are a lot of variables that go into that, so I didn't plug those in here. The bottom line is you've got a flat premium at $18,000 for the limits.
Well, I just didn't see anything, so I didn't know
No, it's a good question.
if that
Yeah.
wasn't a concern
Yeah.
in lieu of what's happening.
It's definitely a concern. I mean,
Okay.
it's ever growing. As a matter of fact, I've talked to Mr. Fives, and we've got some things in front of him to do what we call a cyber quotient evaluation that we offer for free, where it's a survey where they can fill out, and we provide them with an overview of what your program looks like, and we benchmark that against your peers so that he can see where he has areas of opportunity to improve and help out his, and there's no cost, so it's a great thing for them to use.
Thank you.
I make a motion that we accept the insurance policy.
Second. Moved and second to accept, as I get it up, approve the proposal for all insurance coverage for 2019-20 as submitted. Moved and second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed. And thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much.
Hello again.
Would ask that the Kansas City Board of Education approve the contract for Eleview balance as submitted by Dennis Covington, Chief Finance Officer, as recommended by myself, Superintendent of Schools.
Good evening again. Back on March 19th, I brought before you guys a software program that will be used for our site level authority management and monitoring and our transparency. It was called the Eleview system, and bringing it back before you guys because we tabled it that night. So there's really no change into it, but I just want to remind you that the program will increase our transparency with our community about school budgets and per pupil spending, and it will streamline reporting and management of spending against budgets throughout the year. So it's a budget management and development software program that would streamline on the data that you all see and will give access to you guys online, on time, anytime you need it. The cost of the program is, as you see, $63,000 annually. I think it's a very good investment, and I'll take questions.
I met with Dennis Covington to get additional clarification. As we say in our statement every week, to meet in advance if we have questions of clarification. One thing, when we were going through the budgets, I had questions as to how can I see what my school budget is? How can I see where the money's going? How can I tell my constituents how to find this information? Isn't it out there? So I had thought that this was already in motion, and I realized, well, it's not. But this is the level of transparency that even the strategic planner was talking about as it relates to how we can know what is going on with those dollars. In our budget, we talk so much about where do the dollars go, how do we hold people accountable, how do we hold principals. So as I asked my questions and got clarification, it really seemed like this is something that's beneficial. So the timeline for this, what would the timeline look like for this program?
I had a conversation with the vendor. The first step in the program is the integration. That would probably, once approval, that'll take like 45 to 60 days. And then we have the testing of the program, but by October, it should be live, ready to use.
So it'll be on our website?
No, it's
Just internal?
No, the board would have access.
The board would have access. Now, we could eventually make it public for all access, but the price would go up.
Well, that's what I understood from what you said.
Right, I think he's talking about the pilot will be available in
Right, the
October,
first-
and then once we approved it and go
Yeah.
forward, then it would be live.
No, your comment was that a parent could see what goes on in the school.
Right, not initially, though.
Right. The
So
first-
that
the
we
first
could
step
see it
is
as
to
a
get
board.
The principals and the board and administration on the system, and then
Is
we'll
it-
open it up to public.
These are the limitations for the 63,000 package.
Yes, ma'am.
If there's other packages.
Yes, ma'am.
That would reflect what you said.
Yes,
That is not what we're approving.
correct.
Okay. And how does this fit in with, I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Okay.
How does this fit in with the requirements of the new legislation that school districts put their budget, I'll call it just budget at a glance?
Oh, the thing that you have to post on your website,
Correct.
the forms that we have to fill out for the budget, part of that package prints out the budget at a glance that you just attached to your website.
Okay.
This would not be that. They have a very strict budget at a glance
Mm-hmm.
that everyone must post on their website. And that form that we get from KSD prints out that document that you put on
So
your
the answer
website.
is they're two different silos?
Yes.
Okay.
So I make
Other questions?
No, you've answered everything.
so I make a motion that we approve the contract with all of you, the budget management software.
I second it.
And moving is seconded, this is a one-year contract?
The 63 will be annual.
And so once we start, you expect us to keep it till the
Until
next
we stop it.
new thing comes out?
There's not another software program that I've seen that works like this.
Okay. But if they upgrade, how do upgrades come? If they change something within a year, then that is part of the 63?
Yes.
I didn't read
Their
that.
management and monitoring system and
Mm-hmm.
the transparency system are two different modules in their system. So if they upgrade that, we get the upgrade.
Okay. Other questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed. Thank you. Now,
That's that the Kansas City Board of Education discussed proposed budgets as submitted by Dennis Covington, Chief Finance Officer, and is recommended by myself, Superintendent of Schools.
I'm here for questions.
I again want to say that I met with Dennis Covington with the questions that I had, and I was satisfied with those answers as it relates to the budget.
okay.
I have no questions. I accept your report.
Well, I have a few questions that, I always have questions. And I would, before, all these separate pages, this is informational.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we're still at the informational stage. What concerned me is that, how do I know all the departments are addressed? Do we have an update? I guess I'll ask you, Dr. Faust. Do we have an update, organizational chart?
No, July 1st is when we roll those out.
Okay, so I'll look forward to the organizational chart, so then I can plug in the budgets.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's, what concerns me a little bit is that when you separate us, some things are discussed one place and some things may not be discussed at the other session. It's just the dynamics of us.
Yes.
So moving forward, I would hope we would all talk together because we will have to vote on, let's say, if we say maybe there's a difference in, we haven't talked about salaries of classified, we haven't talked about some of the components. So we still need to decide and vote on that because there's some differences.
Yes.
So we'll look forward to some quality time to sit down and go again, almost department by department.
Yes.
For example, the board's budget expanded. I would like to have an itemized kind of discussion with that because some of the things, we overspent. We had a small budget, we overspent, therefore you had to pull money from someplace else. Well, if going in, if we know what the budget is, then we know that that is a cost we need, that may not be a cost we need. So
Yes, ma'am.
that's my generic conversation.
And as an update, KSD forms should be here by July 8th for we to do the official documents that you all need to approve. I don't think we're going to have it ready for your July 16th meeting, so we will probably have to have a special meeting
Right.
to
But we,
approve those
we still
forms.
need some conversation on details, because that will change
Yes.
$100,000 or something.
Yes.
But it still shifts. So, look forward to more discussion.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, sir. Am I good for that? Okay. Don't get too comfortable, Mr. Covington. Thank you. Now we have a board update on the bond.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Lee's gonna come forward, Lee from J.E. Dunn, and give us some great news and great update on our construction for the summer. Dirt's moving, walls going up, painting's being done.
Thanks, Dennis. Madam President, Board.
Good
Dr.
evening.
Faust, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, last month I was reporting on 5 projects. Today I'm reporting on 14.
Great.
And the amazing part of it is the pictures that you're going to see are actually outdated. They're only a week old. So, but we will go through. I do not have an overall budget update. It has not changed from the last couple months. So we are in the process of doing our next round of estimates for the following projects this summer. So we'll have a budget update next month. So I will say that we are like right at the 50% mark and work in place of the work we have under contract. So pretty exciting stuff. I will dive right in here, and we're going to start at FL Schlegel. At this project, we have an administration renovation and science classroom renovation. So the pictures you're seeing there, the new admin corridor, we've actually got drywall and all the metal studs are covered with drywall at this point, and we're gearing up for painting. So this project's looking really good. There's some pictures on the second page there, just the kind of the corridor entrance of protection, and then we've got the science classroom, which again, we're already hanging drywall in those in that space. So project going really good. Any questions on Schlegel? Okay. J.C. Harmon, we are doing a 2-phased administration renovation there. We're working on phase 1. We also have some second floor administration space and some new science classrooms. So the picture there to the right there, that's the first floor administration area. So we're working on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, rough-in, and the walls, and we're looking to start hanging drywall next week. And your science classrooms, which I don't have actually that second picture there is the second floor administration area. So we are, again, in the process of rough-in and metal studs, and we'll start drywall middle of next week. So didn't have any pictures of the science classrooms, but we'll actually be done with drywall on July 1st and start painting July 2nd. So these are all good things to be doing around this time of the summer, getting paint on the walls and getting ceilings going. And just stop me if I'm going too fast. We got a lot to cover. Next project is Washington. So there we're doing a 2-phased total replumb of the project, and so we have the first phase this summer, another phase next summer. So happy to report we're about 75% complete with underground plumbing rough-in, and our site utilities associated with that is about 40% complete. So you can see some pictures there of the site work that we're working on. That first picture is the other component of the project, which is an administration area remodel and secure entry. So we're actually working on framing and some demo still, and our overhead MEP is in progress. So we've had a few challenges on that one. That's going to be a tight finish, but we're not waving our white flag at this point. So next project is John Fisk. We've got at this project, so this is we've got addition, cafeteria, kitchen, and 2 classroom addition, as well as a multi-purpose room. And then we've got some renovation inside. So the first pictures here are the renovation. So we're renovating what was the old multipurpose room into 2 classrooms. So you see metal studs there. We're actually going to be finishing up drywall this week. Our overhead, mechanical, electrical, plumbing is complete this week as well. So progressing pretty good on the renovation. You'll see there we cut a couple new windows in for those classroom spaces. As again, that was the existing multipurpose room. So those windows are installed at this point. On the back is if we can go back to John Fisk, on the back, the second page of that, are pictures of our renovation. So we basically got all aspects of finishes going at this point. You'll kind of see in the pictures. We've got casework installing, kitchen equipment is installed. You can see the floor protection, so we've got our permanent floor finishes down. In our gym, we're wrapping up paving in the gym. So that project's going real well. You also see we do have some site work, and we're currently grading that, getting ready for curbs and concrete on that project. Next project is Banneker Elementary School addition. We are doing a administration and secure entry renovation there. We're in the framing business. We've got in-wall inspections approved, which has released our drywall, so we are currently working on drywall on that project. We've got some pictures on the back with a little bit of the work, and some of these smaller projects, kind of hard to tell what's going on with those, but the plan is to be done. I think we've got about 4.5 weeks left on these summer projects. So next project is Carruthers Elementary School. This one we're actually building we're basically adding onto the building a small vestibule as part of the secure entry projects. You can see in that first picture there, we've got structural steel up. To the right, you can see some gravel with the concrete wall. We've actually got the ADA ramp and stairs poured. So again, just the progress of this is changing every day. Our structural steel is complete. We're currently doing metal framing around that. And then you'll see on the back page some interior pictures. We are working on a nurse's room, and we've got that room painted. We're starting flooring next week. So that one's in good shape. The next project, Quindaro. Again, we've got a office administration remodel for secure entry. So we've got our exterior storefront, which is the aluminum and glass and everything. That is complete at that space. And we've actually already got drywall on the walls, and we've started painting in that space. So got some pictures there of the framing. Again, it's changed. And then you can see that middle picture where it says exterior entry modification. So where we pulled the demo of that existing soffit, that's where the new storefront is. So again, that's installed at this point. So next project is Douglas Elementary School. So this one actually has a kitchen remodel. We're remodeling the existing stage space into a new kitchen. You can see the metal studs there. That's looking into the kitchen from the multi-purpose commons area. We're actually priming those walls right now in that space. We've got our kitchen hood in. We're working on some display case by the entrance there, which we're utilizing the old stage wood flooring to build a display case. So that's in progress there. You can kind of see some pictures on the back. A little bit of underground rough in for the kitchen. That's where you can see some of the concrete patches and working on the overhead. Moving on, next project, Emmy Pearson. This is another elementary school secure entry project. So we actually had to install a wooden temporary enclosure. If you drive by it, you'll see the entrance is covered with wood. We had to do that so we could tear the existing storefront off, still maintain security in the building. So we've been able to get the exterior storefront, which is, again, the aluminum and the glass, back installed. So that project is progressing good. We're looking to be finished with drywall this week and then start painting. So next project is Wellborn, and if you've driven by that project in the last month, you've definitely seen some changes there.
Yeah.
So we've got the south existing building down to nothing, and we're working on subgrade for the new parking and entrance to the new building. The north building, we actually started demolition of half of that building yesterday. We're staying right on the heels of getting that project ready to demo. I think about most of the west half is on the ground at this point, so we're hoping to have that demolition wrapped up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That particular building, the north side, that is the green space, the play area, so that isn't super critical. We've got the critical building down where we can do all the pavement and stuff, and so we're actually hoping to have asphalt base down by July 8th for that school. So again, very tight schedule. We can appreciate if you guys hold off any more 6-inch rains, but we think we're okay. Next project, Gloria Willis. So you'll see on the front side there, you'll see some of the finishes, the gym looking really good. We're actually in the punch list business, so the architect has went through, done their punch list, and so we're working on that on the inside of the building. So that's coming together great. On the second page, you can see some of the pictures. You see the performing arts theater seating there, just some of the other finishes. So what's really cool is we've got most of the existing Coronado building down, and it was almost like an unveiling of the entrance because it's kind of been hidden behind that gym, and so now you should be able to see kind of that new building pop out of there. So still have some site work to do. Getting this building down is obviously critical to getting subgrade and curbs and asphalt going. So
It is pretty.
next project, Carl B. Bruce. Making some progress on this project. You'll see there in the pictures that tall rebar. That's actually a foundation wall that will basically create a second floor. It's kind of a stepped building on that site. So critical path, the work we need to do right now is that wall. Exciting today, and I was actually on site, we started precast for the multi-purpose room today. So in a couple of weeks, you're going to see a big box, which is the storm shelter on that site. We're looking to probably starting steel 1st of August. So we've got, the foundation wall is critical. That holds up some work on the second floor there. So we're pushing to get that one. So we're making good progress on that. The Rosedale Middle School in renovation. So what you see there in the picture, so we do have a cafeteria and kitchen addition. In the addition, we're basically working on flooring, and then we're going to do our internal pre-punch next week. So we're in pretty good shape. You can see some of the finishes there. We've got all the ceiling in, all the kitchen equipment's in. So that's looking really good. We're doing some renovations, and you can see a few of those pictures in the back. We have some administration area. We're basically taking the old kitchen and cafeteria and basically remodeling that into a handful of career exploration spaces, classroom space. And so I was out there today. We're actually wrapping up tape, mud, and finish on the drywall, and should be starting painting shortly on that. We're also renovating, or we're adding new fixtures in the restrooms, and that's ongoing as well. And then last but not least is West Park. And so, again, if you've driven by that, you're seeing some changes. West Middle School, unfortunately, is coming down. So we're looking to have demo complete by July 15th, and then we'll start building the ground up new elementary school. So lots going on. Any questions?
I'm not sure if we asked, but do we recycle? I think we may have asked that before.
Certain concrete can be recycled, and that is being recycled. So yes, the earthwork contractors include that as part of their bid, so they can actually provide a more effective cost if they can take that concrete and recycle it and use it elsewhere. So.
Okay, thank you.
Humphries, any?
No. Are we going to meet our deadlines? So when school's ready to start, those schools that are supposed to open?
We've never opened a school late. So we won't start in this.
No, that doesn't answer the question. You may open the school and the construction is not completed.
So we turn it over to new builds, so we're in good shape there. Again, the site work's a little challenging. And then we've got all of the renovations that we're trending in a good spot right now. So we anticipate turning all those over on schedule.
Any other questions? No. Well, the good news is probably USD 500 has the most construction projects going on in at least KCK. We can say
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Now, the other question, and I guess I don't know who is responsible for that, but it's been a while since we have received data on contractors, minority, women, local, and breaking local ethnic minorities. Now, so where, have you been keeping that data?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I would like to see that next time around. And the schematic drawing that started in, what, 18? And kind of tells us your progress, that is reflected in your pictures, I'm sure. So are you still keeping that?
You're looking for a timeline over the total
You remember
bond
you
projects?
gave us, there was presented to the board, I'm not sure when it was.
Okay.
But I got it if you don't remember what I'm talking about. But
Yeah,
it
I'm-
essentially is a huge document.
Okay.
That had a list of all the projects and essentially the targets for completion. Have you seen that, Mr. Covington?
Yes. You're talking about just a one-page Excel, and it had
Oh, yeah,
bars
it was-
for each
it was-
project, and there was some.
A billboard.
Yeah,
The size of a billboard.
okay. Okay, absolutely.
Size of a billboard, when you blow it up, I can read it.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah,
it's a
Understood.
11 by 13 piece of paper that folds over and had to have a magnifying glass. But you're still keeping that, huh? Okay, you're still keeping that.
Okay, along with that, and I heard you say that you would like to see it, could that be submitted to you and then you can look at it, and if necessary, then we could bring it here?
No, it's a document that we have, that the
I know.
board gets.
I know.
So you can either put in the library, but no, it's a document that the board
Right.
has received. I don't know if current board members received it or not. It may have come in 18, or may have come in 17. I don't remember when I got it. But it's not for me, it's for the board to if someone asks you, where's Carl Bruce, you can say, here's my, you're not going to flip it out, you're not going to carry it with you. But if you had access to it, you could say, it was scheduled to start demolition in June, and we're on target. I mean, it is for the board's consumption and knowledge. It's not just for me.
I understand, but to my understanding, what I thought I understood you to say was the fact that in relation to the different groups of people who, of different races who are going to be there.
That's the first part of the document,
Okay.
the document we should
Right.
get.
So that's what I'm saying, and I thought I heard you say you wanted to see that. So that's why I was asking, could that be submitted to you so that you can look at it and if you have any questions?
No, it's been submitted to the board
Right.
in your reports.
In the past.
You just stop doing that. So I'm saying, next report you give, just add that. No, it's not a personal thing, it's
Okay.
the data we
Why-
used to
why do
get.
we- If it's not an issue that we want to see right now, why is it necessary?
Oh, because we have a community who's paying the bills.
I understand.
And I would ask then, Mr. Rob, do we have an affirmative action plan? And the answer is no. And so the question is, when then you have 200, you say we're 50% done, essentially? So we spent $100 million. How much of that $100 million have women contractors received? I mean, it's the data that we used to get. And I'm just suggesting we need to continue to get that data, and as well as, you know, going forward, where are the bids? I think they're on the website. It's, to answer your question, Ms. Jew, in my opinion, the board needs to be able to answer to the community, to what extent has the community benefited from not only the educational opportunities that come from the schools, but also the employment opportunities, the apprenticeship opportunities, the opportunities we've discussed before. I'm not remembering whether we've had this conversation with Dr. Faust and the new board, but the point is, Kansas City, Kansas community people are paying the bills, and they will pay the bills for 30 years. Now, what is the data to say who benefited from the there was discussion that, yes, state of Kansas does not allow goal setting. The state of Kansas statutes do not allow X, Y, Z. Well, we know what the law says. But the the disparity study has been printed. And that was the drawback for the longest, that, well, we need a disparity study. Okay, we've got it now. So it comes back to, we're halfway through. Now, to what extent are community qualified contractors, women's minority? We can't just go to those monthly luncheons and say diversity is happening. We need to know the data. And that's what I'm saying. We used to get the data. When did we stop getting the data? January?
Yeah.
The last one was February.
February. Okay. So since February, you're updating it. Well, just give it to us.
So you're asking that this data be given to us monthly,
Every time they
other
give a
month,
report.
or whenever they give the report? That's
Yeah,
what you're
That's
requesting?
what we used to get.
Okay.
So it's just, we just haven't been getting it. Well, just put it back in your report.
Do you think maybe it might be that as a board, we can decide when that data is going to be given to us? Because what we're doing is we're professionally trusting them to be able to do what is necessary. And I understand that that is important to make sure you have a diverse group of people to build. But right now, the way I see it is that we're on a timeline and we have to develop some professional trust. At some point later, because it hasn't been given to us, and again, later on, we can address that and look at it. But I think what's most important right now is that we get the schools where they need to be in order to be ready for when the students.
Two different issues. I'm sorry, I'm not explaining it correctly. The schools, the buildings go on. I'm just saying, give us the data of who is getting the contracts. We got it before. It's nothing that they're not compiling. Just give it to us.
That's what you would prefer to have?
No,
Is that
that's
you're
what
saying? Is
we
it
have.
mandatory?
That's what we have gotten.
But is it mandatory? That's what I'm asking.
Well, we don't have to take a vote on it because it just comes down to provide us a report. I mean, it's.
Is it necessary at every board meeting? That's what I'm asking.
If you show some pictures, you're just giving numbers anyway. Yeah, I think it's our responsibility to know if minority, women, local qualified contractors are getting the bids.
Okay.
Just included the data in the report. You've done it before, just update it and give it to us again. And it's not a personal request, it's a request for data. It may be a personal, I'm the only one talking.
No, but people do ask that question, and we get hit all the time. I know I do, all the time. So for clarity, nobody's pointing a finger to say, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. The data does help, so you can say, when someone says, well, why isn't, well, this is the data that we received. It would help to explain, and I don't think that would hurt. Now, some people may not want it, some may want it, but, we are paying a lot of money to Jerry Dunn. So we've been getting it. I don't think it hurts to include it in the report. And it would help, because I know I'm hit all the time with that, and I'd like to be able to show this is what we got. And it helps clear up some things. They don't have to accept it. They can accept it, reject it, but at least we have something, and it just helps, because there is a mistrust. And it just helps, makes things flow a little bit better. Again, it's no pointing any fingers at you, it just helps.
Would it be appropriate for members to have, we had a meeting with Lakeisha, and I forget what that meeting was called, where she presented the backstory. And so I think that may give the board clarity on, because if you just give them the numbers, they still won't have the clarity, but it'll give clarity. Is that a meeting that our board would be able to attend?
Sure. I think we did something similar. We held it out of logistics. We did a special board meeting last year where we did kind of an update on all the efforts and all the results and everything. So if you'd like to do something like that or something modified, we'd be happy to.
I'm sorry, that meeting was a little more It was where they had, and I forget what the name of that one was, where we had it was next door. And she was able to explain, and we had individuals who were there who talked about how they attempt to help individuals get what's needed and the information that's needed, and they don't show up for those meetings.
That's the EIC committee meeting, so we have those.
Are we able to
quarterly.
bring board members to that? I think that would provide more clarity, so when you get the sheet, and individuals are asking why they don't come, they don't actually fill out the paperwork.
Yeah, I've attended one of those meetings, and they're fuzzy, friendly meetings, unless the women contractors and the minority contractors actually have the opportunity. And
Yeah, this one that I went to, there were actually the women who were there trying to help them get the
right, as I said,
admission, but
I got
they were
you.
talking about all of the meetings that they set aside outside to help them actually fill it out, but
Yeah.
they can't get them to come. So that's where I want us to be able to go, where it's not a J.E. Dunn thing. We have to work on our community to help educate them so that it's not a blaming anyone for it, but definitely so that when you get the numbers, it's not, well, we aren't looking for them. They are looking for them. They're actually holding outside meetings to get them to do it. And for some unknown reason, our community members aren't coming to do it. So that's where I think we probably need to start if we can. I'm not sure when's the next.
We do have one coming up in July. I think my phone's dead, but I think it's
Okay.
later in July
Okay.
that we've got that scheduled, so.
Right. And we have the invitation for the monthly luncheon or something, which is probably,
That Nikisha holds at.
Right,
I think
so-
it's a quarterly meeting that
right,
she
so
hosts.
we
No,
understand.
this is a different meeting.
I understand that. I've attended one of those. But we understand, what I'm saying is that historically, there has not been inclusion, and a lot of it comes from, and when we saw the statistics, the statistics said, package too big, package too little, I've got other jobs. So there are reasons why the numbers don't reflect the
No, in
interest.
that, and I beg to differ, because I'll tell you, in that specific meeting, you're able to look at they will give you the actual individuals, what they did, how they went out to try to get them, who they actually tried to help, and the results from why they tried, what they didn't get from them. We actually weren't even eating anything in that meeting. It was literally face-to-face, because I was asking those questions, and it actually changed my perception on what J.E. Dunn was doing, because they are actually, Lakeisha's department is actually out there. There were, can't remember the African-American lady's name who was there. There was an African-American gentleman who was there, who was also trying to help and get them to sign up, but they were not doing some of the work that they needed. But I can't call the specifics of what they were doing, but they were actually really, the only thing they weren't doing is actually filling out the applications for
I
them.
get, we're not,
So-
again, maybe I'm talking past you, and I get what you're saying because I understand. And that's not what the discussion is about. The discussion is about what are the returns, who are filling it out.
So that's what I'm saying, in that meeting is where they give you the background of it, so then when you get the form, you can say, oh, this is what that form
Right,
means.
and we need to show up. But at the end of the day, we're halfway through, so that if, it's kind of like what you're, and I agree with you, the outreach to the community. There has to be a willingness, there has to be an understanding, and I'm not sure if some of those past bids were in Dos Mundos, The Call, things like that. We had a conversation on how the bid, and I think you followed up with giving me copies of the ads. So it's not a one shot, I want to see a number. It's, we're halfway through. What have we done? Now, the inclusion and outreach strategies have not, and what you're saying, this one didn't work for a reason. And you have data to say this person didn't fill it out, couldn't fill it out, didn't respond. Got that. But we cannot stop. We as a board cannot stop trying to answer to our community. And I'll ask again, do we have an affirmative action plan, district? And so we need to recognize there may be something that we need to do to help J.E. Dunn. I mean, you're not a rookie at this. This is not your first rodeo. If nothing else, you rebuilt the Capitol. So you know, you take on big projects. But the responsibility, in my opinion, and I can only speak for myself, is that we show the community we are trying to do something. Not only just asking them to pay the bills, but something, so that there'll be some opportunities for qualified contractors who are either women, minority, or whatever.
And again, I would think, you know, we're just now looking at a strategic plan. Quite honestly, if that strategic plan idea was brought last year, the year before, that strategic plan, I feel, going back to that, would be awesome to help identify what our goals was. If we had that strategic plan, we would have said in there, more clearly articulated what we want to see. So I think that's an opportunity for us to continue to grow and look at it. When we get that opportunity to do our strategic plan, that would be one of probably the components or our idea. But I just see that this really playing out as a strategic initiative for us to continue to grow on. So
I agree with you,
yeah,
because
I think
it's not a one-day shot.
Right.
And so you know, what I'm suggesting and what I'm saying is that whether or not a particular board member wants to see a number, this is a community-wide concern. That's all I'm bringing to, and we only talk about it when we talk about the bond updates and the construction. So, thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
See you next month
Okay,
with some data.
okay.
Mrs. Westfall, I get your name straight now. Any community comments?
No, not this evening.
All right. Next item, payment of bills for the library. I guess if you have any questions, you can email Ms. Levers.
I'd ask that the Kansas City Board of Education approve the payment of bills for public libraries as submitted by Carol Levers, Director of Libraries, and as recommended by myself, Superintendent of Schools.
I move we pay our bills for the library.
For the library.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we pay the bills for the Kansas City, Kansas public libraries. Excuse me, as submitted. Any discussion? And again, to restate, the library is a separate entity. So we haven't in the past been looking at it as a separate entity. And so that was the basis of the request that I made, and Ms. Drew suggested we do it this month instead of changing the agenda. And so that is that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. We have the consent agenda. Any set-asides?
I just have a comment on the HR report, page 3, number.
You want to set it aside?
No, I just want to let them know number 41 and 42 are the same, but I'm sure they caught it.
I already caught that. And
I said I'm sure they caught it.
they didn't, but we caught it for them. You always need a second set of eyes and a third set. They come in handy.
Yep. Other than that, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Now the payment of K-12 bills. And again, any issues, we'll send comment to you, Mr. Covington.
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion that we,
That the Kansas City Board of Education approve the payment of bills for K-12 as submitted by Dennis Covington, Chief Financial Officer, and submitted by myself, Charles Fowle, Superintendent of Schools.
I make a motion that we pay our bills.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed. Board calendar. We'll probably have some additions. One for the HR audit, Mr. Covington said we'll probably have a special for the budget, so stay tuned. Am I not scrolling down again? Is there anything in the timeline? There's nothing there. Rob, help me understand, would this be the place, or would this be the place to say we have to determine the July meeting based on the new law for us to consider what we're going to do? We have to determine what we're going to do. What I'm talking about?
I do, and I think that's right, because the law changed mid-year, and so ordinarily it says January for certain aspects, June for others, and it's a bit of a change from the past. So yeah, I think now would be the appropriate time. You could determine what you want to do going forward, and then statute provides that on a yearly basis that moves to January, if I'm understanding what it is you're referencing.
The time for the election to reorganize. So it's new to us now. Do we have to make that decision today?
You don't have to today, but you should consider it soon and make it probably by July, yeah.
Yeah.
For
Do you
this year.
understand what I'm saying?
For the elections either to be in July or
January.
Right.
I think we need to make a decision now and that way we can know that elections can be held the first meeting in July.
Well, the only meeting in July.
Yeah, the only meeting in July.
At the board meeting.
Right, so I think we should make that decision now, that way we all can.
If everyone's clear.
If you want to do them in July, yes, you should do it now. You're kind of in an in-between, because this is the year the statute changed, and ordinarily it provides you to make those decisions in January. We're already past that point.
Right.
So yes, if you want to go ahead and set that and be able to do it in July, you should probably make that decision now for this year, and then next year you'll be in line with the statute, because that'll be the first full year in it.
So you want to make a motion and then have a discussion?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make a motion.
I make a motion that we hold elections for reorganization in July.
I'll second it.
Moving and second, now discussion. So, what other things, what does that involve? Pull up that statute, please. I think it just dealt with reorganization of officers, because you still would identify your affirmative action person, those other categories.
Continue as if we have.
We still have to do our normal July.
Activities.
Yeah.
Scroll through.
Should have put it on the agenda, but it's there. I don't know if you get your KASB news
Every day.
items.
Yep.
They alerted us of the change in the law.
Right.
Should have been on the agenda, but we're here. It's not too complicated.
No. Okay.
You wanted the other items that are under that
Yes, please.
statute.
And so do we need to finish that vote?
No, he needs to, for me, it's part of the discussion that we
Okay.
know what we're voting.
Okay.
That you said, the statute says we're holding office,
Right.
but there's a statute require
Right.
other.
Okay.
So it's under KSA 1133 and 1138. I'm sorry, 72-1133 and 1138.
If you ever need to look up statutes that deal with school board or schools, it's always 72, chapter 72.
Okay. I've got the updated versions pulled up. So under 1133, the first section provides for the election of the president and vice president. So that's that section as revised.
We can choose.
Give me 1 second, I'm getting the correct version to pull up. So that section ordinarily provided for, and I'm going to walk through all of them, so the elections and the items. The election of the president and vice president at the first meeting in July. That was how you ordinarily did it. The revision changes that to be, I believe, in January, unless you decide to do it at a different meeting throughout the year. So that's under 1133, president and vice president, the elections for that. And then if you look at 1138, that's where the remainder of the items to be considered at that meeting are. And that similarly provided that you would do certain actions in July of each year. And so the revised statute now provides again that it would be in the first couple weeks of January each year. Obviously, we're past January, and so you have a decision to make as to whether you want to do those things in July still or move them another date throughout this year. And then ordinarily, once we get past this year, again, you'll have a decision to make every January with respect to those items. And so the other items listed would be it's through a resolution that specifies the regular meeting time of the board and the regular hour of commencement of the meeting, as well as the day of the week and the month. That's the primary item under that section. It provides that you would set your meeting times, regular meeting times, those types of things. And I'm going to make sure there's not anything else. That's it. So it'd be those items. And again, you can elect to continue to do them in July for this year and operate that way. And then again, you'd have the decision again in January. You can also decide to, if you would like, extend the current terms of those positions and continue. That's the other option under the statute until next January. But that's up to you all.
Clarify me one more time, then you have to do it again in January?
That's correct.
Or in January, you can pass a resolution to say that you want to do it in.
But you have to take action in
You have to
January.
either take the action of the electing officers and setting your meeting dates, all that, or you pass a resolution saying that you're going to do it in July.
Okay, but
You have to do that each year.
in July, the motion says to address that statute.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
exactly.
Right. Are you saying for this year?
Yes.
Correct.
To establish.
What do we do
Yes.
To establish a position of president, vice president, and meeting times.
in the regular time of the meeting?
Right.
So
Yep.
just, we need to be prepared for that.
Okay. And Susan will
Understand,
be prepared.
everybody?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, time for call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed. Okay, thank you. 7:25, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we will recess, ladies and gentlemen, into 2 executive sessions. So, have a good evening.